The house was cloaked in darkness as I stepped through the front door, my parents having left for a weekend getaway. It was a rare occasion for me to be home alone at night, and a mixture of excitement and unease settled in the pit of my stomach. I told myself it would be fine, that I was old enough to handle a few hours alone. Little did I know that this night would test the limits of my courage. As I made my way through the familiar rooms, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Shadows danced on the walls, whispering secrets I couldn't decipher. I dismissed it as my imagination running wild and tried to distract myself with a book, seeking solace in the written word. Hours passed, and the stillness of the night grew heavier. The house seemed to hold its breath, the silence broken only by the occasional creaking of floorboards. Unease gnawed at me, and I found it difficult to focus on my book. Every little sound sent my heart racing, my imagination conjuring up images of unseen figures lurking in the darkness. A sudden chill filled the room, causing me to shiver. I glanced toward the window, half expecting to see a pair of eyes peering in from outside. But what I saw made my blood run cold. A figure, tall and shadowy, stood on the other side of the glass. Panic gripped me as our eyes locked, a sinister smile spreading across their face. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding in my chest. How could someone be outside? I lived in a quiet neighborhood, far away from any potential danger. Thoughts raced through my mind. Should I call the police? Should I hide? Fear paralyzed me, rendering me incapable of making a rational decision. With a sudden burst of courage, I ran upstairs, desperate to put as much distance between myself and the stranger as possible. I locked myself in my parents' bedroom, the walls providing a false sense of security. From there, I dialed 911, my voice shaking as I explained the situation to the operator. As I waited for help to arrive, the minutes felt like hours. Every creak of the floorboards outside the bedroom intensified my fear. I prayed that the police would arrive soon, that they would rescue me from the terror that had invaded my sanctuary. Finally, the sound of sirens pierced the night, their wailing symphony a lifeline in the darkness. Relief washed over me as I heard footsteps approaching the front door. But as the door swung open, my heart plummeted. The figure from the window stood in the hallway, their presence defying all reason. The police officers reacted swiftly, ordering the intruder to freeze. But instead of complying, the figure turned and darted toward me, their intentions sinister and unknown. I screamed, frozen in fear as the officers chased after them, the chase echoing through the house. In the chaos that ensued, the intruder managed to slip away, leaving me shaken and vulnerable. The police assured me that they would do everything in their power to catch the perpetrator, but the lingering sense of violation remained. Days turned into weeks, and the incident weighed heavily on my mind. The sense of safety I once had in my home had been shattered. Every creak, every shadow became a reminder of that night, a constant reminder that true terror could invade even the most familiar places. I installed security measures, hoping they would bring me peace of mind. But deep down, I knew that my sense of security had been forever altered. The fear of being home alone at night became a constant companion, an unwanted shadow that followed me wherever I went. The midnight visitor had taught me a harsh lesson, one that reminded me that darkness held secrets, and that sometimes, home alone at night could be the most frightening place to be. Story 2. The night was heavy with an eerie stillness as I found myself alone in the house. My parents were out for the evening, leaving me to navigate the darkness that enveloped every corner. It was a typical suburban home, cozy and familiar during the day, but at night, its walls seemed to whisper secrets and hold unseen terrors. Little did I know that this particular night would unravel into an experience that would forever haunt my dreams. As the evening wore on, I attempted to distract myself with mundane activities, reading a book, watching television, but the sense of unease persisted. The familiar creaks and groans of the house took on a sinister tone, as if the very foundation held a dark secret. I tried to dismiss the growing sense of dread, attributing it to an overactive imagination, but deep down, I knew something wasn't right. As the clock struck midnight, a chilling breeze swept through the house, extinguishing the warm glow of the lights. I felt a shiver crawl up my spine as I stood in the darkness, the silence enveloping me like a suffocating blanket. It was in that moment that I realized I was not alone. Whispers, barely audible, filled the air, echoing from the deepest recesses of the house. I strained to listen, my heart pounding in my chest. The words were indiscernible, a ghostly murmur that danced on the edge of comprehension. Fear gripped me, paralyzing my body as I tried to make sense of the supernatural presence that had invaded my home. As I moved cautiously through the house, the whispers grew louder, their tone shifting from hushed murmurs to menacing laughter. Shadows seemed to slither along the walls, distorting the familiar surroundings into a twisted nightmare. I desperately sought refuge in the familiar, turning on lights, locking doors, but it was as if the darkness itself laughed at my feeble attempts to defy it. A sudden draft swept through the hallway, extinguishing the remaining lights one by one. Panic seized me, my heart racing as I stumbled blindly through the inky blackness. The laughter grew louder, reverberating through the empty halls. I could feel their presence closing in, suffocating me. I reached for my phone, desperate for a lifeline, but to my horror, it remained lifeless. The battery drained as if sucked dry by the malevolent forces at play. My last connection to the outside world severed, leaving me trapped in a nightmare of my own making. The darkness seemed to take on a physical form, a shapeless entity that whispered my name with malicious intent. I huddled in a corner, my mind consumed by terror. It was then that I caught a glimpse of movement, a figure, barely visible in the shadows, inching closer with every passing second. I mustered the last vestiges of courage within me and bolted towards the front door, desperate to escape the clutches of the unknown. But just as my trembling hand grasped the doorknob, the house erupted in a cacophony of wailing cries and unearthly screams. I turned, my eyes wide with terror, only to be confronted by a legion of apparitions. Their ghastly faces contorted in agony, reaching out to me with spectral hands. I screamed, my voice drowned out by their tormented chorus. With a burst of adrenaline, I tore myself free from their grasp and stumbled into the night. I collapsed on the front lawn, gasping for breath as the cacophony faded into silence. The once haunted house now stood dark and foreboding, its secrets buried within its walls. In the days that followed, my parent,